In a small, dusty village nestled between mountains, there lived a young man named Ragav. He was born into a poor family. His father was a farmer and his mother a seamstress. The family barely had enough to eat, and the idea of wealth or luxury was a distant dream. But Ragav had something that was invaluable, a burning desire to change his fate. Now, there is humble beginnings of this story. Ragav's house was a small, cramped hut on the outskirts of the village. It had a thatched roof, which leaked when it rained, and walls that seemed to whisper the cold of the mountain winds. His father, who worked long hours on the farm, often fell sick due to exhaustion. Ragav's mother, though skilled with her needle, was constantly busy trying to stitch clothes for the villagers. Despite their hard work, they had very little to show for it. From a young age, Ragav understood the importance of hard work. He would often help his father in the fields, plowing the land, planting seeds, and gathering crops. But he knew that this life, though humble and honest, would not be enough to lift him out of poverty. He dreamed of something more. He dreamed of education. However, education in Ragav's village was a luxury few could afford. The local school was miles away, and the fees were far beyond what his parents could manage. Nevertheless, Ragav was determined. He found a way to learn, borrowing books from older villagers, studying by candlelight, and practicing what he could from the little knowledge he had. Now, there is a turning point in this story. One day, a traveling teacher came to the village, offering free classes to anyone who was interested. This was a rare opportunity, and Ragav seized it. The teacher, an old man named Guru Dhanraj, saw the spark in Ragav's eyes. He noticed that Ragav didn't just study to memorize, but to understand and improve. Guru Dhanraj, impressed by Ragav's dedication, took him under his wing. 4 years, Ragav studied under the guidance of Guru Dhanraj. He learned about mathematics, literature, philosophy, and the sciences. The more he learned, the more determined he became to find a way to use his knowledge to help his family. But his situation remained unchanged. He was still poor, and his family was struggling. One evening, as Ragav sat in the village square, a merchant from a faraway city passed through. The merchant's cart was filled with beautiful, hand-woven textiles, pottery, and rare spices. Ragav had never seen such things before. He struck up a conversation with the merchant, who spoke of the vast opportunities in the city, where markets thrived and the possibilities were endless. That night, Ragav couldn't sleep. He thought about the merchant's words and the knowledge he had gained over the years. He realized that if he could somehow reach the city, he might find a way to create something of value, something that could change his life and the lives of his family. Now, there is struggle for opportunity. With a heavy heart, Ragav spoke to his parents. He told them of his desire to leave the village and seek work in the city, hoping that one day he could bring back something to make their lives easier. His parents, though sad to see him go, understood his determination. They gave him their blessings, and with a small bundle of belongings, Ragav set off to the city. The journey was difficult. Ragav had to walk for many days, with only a few coins to buy food. There were moments when he felt like giving up, when the road seemed endless, and the hunger gnawed at his stomach. But Ragav kept going. He remembered the lessons he had learned from his mentor, Guru Dhanraj. Success is not given, it is earned through perseverance and wisdom. When Raghav finally reached the city, he was overwhelmed. The city was bustling with activity, shops, markets, and people from all walks of life. But there was no time for awe. He had no money, no contacts, and no plan. Raghav did what he had always done. He worked. He took any job he could find, from washing dishes in restaurants to carrying goods for merchants. He saved every penny, hoping to find a way to start something of his own. During his free time, he would read books at the local library, learning about business, finance, and trade. Now, there is breakthrough in this story. Years passed, and Raghav's life slowly began to improve. He had saved enough to open a small shop, selling handcrafted items from the village. But the competition in the city was fierce, and his business was barely surviving. One day Raghav had an idea. He remembered the hand-woven textiles and pottery the merchant had sold, and he thought about how unique the village craftsmanship was. He decided to focus on creating high-quality, handcrafted goods that told a story, pieces that were not just objects, but symbols of heritage and tradition. He would market these goods as something special, something different from the mass-produced items, flooding the city. He sought out skilled artisans from his village and began to work with them. Together they created beautiful items that quickly gained attention. Raghav's shop started attracting customers, and soon, his reputation as a purveyor of unique, quality goods spread throughout the city. Raghav's business grew steadily, and he soon opened more stores. But he never forgot his roots. He used his success to help the villagers, providing them with fair wages and teaching them the skills to improve their craftsmanship. He also set up a small school in the village to ensure that the children had access to education, something he had longed for when he was young. Raghav's story became well known, not just for his success, but for the humility with which he carried himself. He had gone from a poor farmer's son to a successful businessman, but he always credited his journey to the lessons of hard work, perseverance, and education. Years later, Guru Dhanraj, now old and frail, visited Raghav in the city. The two sat together, and Raghav shared his story of struggle and triumph. Guru Dhanraj smiled and said, "Raghav, you've learned the greatest lesson of all. True success is not about wealth, but about the ability to uplift others. Your journey is not just your own. It is a light for many." The final lesson of this story. Raghav's story teaches us that success is not determined by our starting point, but by our willingness to work, learn, and adapt. It's about finding opportunities where others see obstacles, and using our knowledge and skills to create value for ourselves and those around us. It's also about giving back, helping others rise as we rise. For Raghav, the journey from poverty to success was not just about achieving wealth, it was about becoming a person who could bring change, inspire others, and leave behind a legacy of kindness and wisdom. And so, Raghav's story continues to be passed down through generations, not as a tale of riches, but as a reminder that the road to success is paved with perseverance, learning, and a heart willing to help others. In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river, there stood an ancient oak tree. This was no ordinary tree. It was known as the Whispering Oak. For centuries, villagers believed that the tree held the wisdom of the ages, and those who listened closely could hear its gentle whispers, offering guidance and insight. One day, a young woman named Ilara found herself at a crossroads in her life. She was kind-hearted and hardworking, but she felt lost, unsure of which path to take. Her father had fallen ill, and the family farm was struggling. Ilara had to decide whether to stay and care for her family, or leave the village to seek her fortune in the bustling city beyond the hills. Desperate for answers, Ilara decided to visit the Whispering Oak. She had heard stories of its wisdom, but had never dared to approach it herself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village, she made her way to the tree. The oak was massive, its gnarled branches stretching toward the sky like ancient arms. Ilara sat beneath it, her back against its rough bark, and closed her eyes. At first, she heard only the rustling of leaves in the breeze. But then faintly she began to hear a voice, soft like a whisper yet clear. "Ilara," the tree murmured, "why do you seek me?" Startled, Ilara opened her eyes and looked around. No one was there. She realized the voice was coming from the tree itself. Gathering her courage, she replied, "I don't know what to do. My family needs me, but I feel called to something greater. How can I choose?" The oak's voice was calm and steady. "Wisdom is not in choosing one path over another, but in understanding the value of both. Tell me, what does your heart say?" Ilara thought for a moment. "My heart says I want to help my family, but I also want to grow and learn. I feel torn." The tree's leaves rustled gently, as if nodding. A tree cannot grow without roots, yet it cannot reach the sun without branches. You are both your roots and your branches. Tend to your family, for they are your foundation. But do not forget to grow, for that is your purpose. Ilara frowned. "But how can I do both? The farm is failing, and my father is too ill to work. If I leave, who will care for them? If I stay, how will I ever fulfill my dreams?" The oak's whisper grew softer, almost like a sigh. "Wisdom is not in having all the answers, but in asking the right questions. What if you did not have to choose? What if you could find a way to honor both your roots and your branches?" Ilara sat in silence, pondering the tree's words. Slowly, an idea began to form in her mind. "What if I could bring the city to the village?" she wondered aloud. "What if I could find a way to use my skills to help the farm thrive while still pursuing my dreams?" The oak's voice was warm with approval. "You are beginning to see. Wisdom is not a destination but a journey. It is in finding balance, in seeing possibilities where others see only obstacles." Ilara felt a surge of hope. She thanked the tree and hurried back to the village, her mind racing with ideas. Over the next few weeks, she worked tirelessly. She reached out to merchants in the city, striking deals to sell the farm's produce at a higher price. She introduced new crops that were in demand, and she even started a small business making preserves from the fruits they grew. As the farm began to prosper, Ilara's father regained his strength, and her family's spirits lifted. She also found time to pursue her own interests, studying books she borrowed from travelers and teaching herself new skills. She realized that by staying true to her roots, she had found a way to grow her branches. Years later, Ilara stood once more beneath the whispering oak, this time with her own child by her side. The village had flourished, and the farm was thriving. She looked up at the ancient tree and smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. "You taught me that wisdom is not in choosing one path, but in finding the way to walk them both." The oak's leaves rustled gently, as if in reply. And in that moment, Ilara knew that the tree's wisdom would live on, not just in its whispers, but in the choices she made every day.